Dude, we're rolling.
Unless you've been living under a rock for the past decade, in fact, even if you've been living under a rock for the past decade, you've probably heard of these Beats headphones. They're a pop culture icon and you just can't avoid them, which is why I'm standing next to the new Volkswagen Polo Beats. Now the Polo is the most sensible little hatch probably in the history of sensible little hatches, but this one has got a red stripe on the roof, red trim on the dash, and a whole lot of Beats badges scattered around. Is it a marketing match made in heaven, or is it a bridge too far?
Power in the Beats comes from the same 1 litre, 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine as the regular Polo 85 TSI, which means you get 85 kilowatts of power and 200 newton meters of torque. It's put to the front wheels through a 7-speed DSG transmission in our tester, but the 6-speed manual is standard and $2,000 cheaper. Autonomous emergency braking is standard, but tech like blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise, and automatic reverse parking are part of a $1,400 package. From the outside, the car takes the basic Polo look and brightens it up a bit with a new sticker pack and badges. These mirrors are black, which is new as well. It rides on 16-inch alloy wheels, but the design team hasn't gone too wild here.
Opening up the boot, which you do with the badge naturally, there's 351 litres of space back here, which is actually more than you got in a Mark IV Volkswagen Golf and is more than enough for this suitcase. Fold those seats down and they split 60-40 and you've got 1,125 litres of space, and under the boot floor is a proper full-size spare wheel. Back here, there's actually a surprising amount of space. Now, I'm quite tall and I really wouldn't want to sit behind a taller driver for too long, but normal-sized adults and children aren't going to have anything to complain about. There's lots of headroom, there's no sunroof feeding into that, and these seats are really nicely padded, but you don't get air vents. Volkswagen saves those for the Golf and the Passat. You do get map pockets behind both the seats and bottle pockets in both the doors. If I had to get really nitpicky, I'd complain about these armrests. They're a little bit hard and scratchy, and if you were sitting on them all day, well, maybe you'd get a bit of a sore arm, but this is the cheapest car Volkswagen offers in Australia, so I might be asking too much.
Speaking of a bit much, check out that red, white and black trim. We complained our long-term Polo was a bit drab inside, but this feels like a bit of an overcorrection. There's satin red trim on the dash, white highlights on the doors, dash and centre console, and a few tactical Beats logos to remind you this isn't a base model.
One of the real highlights in this car is the 10.25-inch active info display you see here. It's crystal clear and you can customise it to within an inch of its life. Like all other Polos, there's an 8-inch touchscreen standard in the middle of the dash, but the Beats gets navigation included where most of the other Polos don't.
You're probably wondering about the stereo, given the Beats tie-up. It's punchier than the standard system, no doubt about it, but Volkswagen's been subdued with the badging. Only the A-pillar gets Beats logos. The indoor speakers just look standard.
Beyond all the colourful stuff, it's pretty much standard Polo in here, which is a good thing. The seating position is excellent. There's lots of adjustment for taller drivers, and there's myriad storage options for all your junk. You've got door pockets, cup holders, the centre console, plus 2 USB ports and wireless charging up front. With all of that said, I'm a little bit disappointed by the build quality of this particular car. These trim pieces down here don't quite match up, and I realise this is not the most expensive car Volkswagen makes, but it's certainly not cheap in Polo Beats guys.
Anyway, what's the Polo like to drive in the city? And what's the DSG like in the city? The answer? It's very good and a little bit annoying all at the same time.
Right now I'm sitting at a set of lights. Auto start stops on, you can hear it's very serene in here, but if I want to go, I'm now off the brake and my foot's on the accelerator, and now we're moving.
It's only a split-second pause and you can actually turn start-stop off, which does help solve the problem.
Best case scenario, you go, that's frustrating. Worst case scenario, you're stuck trying to move with traffic and the car's not ready to go. It can be really, really annoying. Once you're up to speed though, it's a really, really good partner for the engine, this gearbox. It shifts really quickly for one, so it jumps into the right gear pretty much straight away, and if you put your foot down, it's more than happy to drop a gear. On the highway, it gets into 7th gear and sits there spinning about 2,000 RPM, so it's really nice and quiet in the background. And when you really want to, you can chuck it in sports mode and use the paddles behind the wheel here, and really take advantage of what is quite a fun little engine. It sounds good, it sort of thrums away when you're accelerating. Volkswagen's done a good job of making this characterful but also quite refined.
The steering is light enough to make low-speed parking a cinch, but the Polo doesn't feel flighty on the highway. Volkswagen has walked a tricky tightrope here, balancing the demands of city drivers with what you need on the highway, and it's walked it well.
It won't come as too much of a surprise to know the Beats isn't an outright sports car, but that's not a bad thing. There's a little bit of fun to be had if you really want to toss it into some corners because it's small and light and makes cool noises, but realistically, quiet competence is more this car's style. Given the Polo GTI exists, that makes a lot of sense. Volkswagen knows what its customers are after in a city car, and this kind of nails that mark, even if it's not the world's most exciting drive. Everything we've said about the Polo in past completely applies to the Beats as well. It looks good, it's quiet and comfortable inside. It just feels like a grown-up, bigger car. You'll either love or hate the stripes in the interior. It's certainly more interesting than the normal Polo, but for me personally, I'd probably stick to a normal 85 TSI, maybe spec the R-Line package, get a manual and the active info display. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Car Advice channel for more videos like these ones. Head to caradvice.com for the full review on the Polo Beats.